I want to talk to you for a few moments today about that trust factor. Everybody say trust is a must. Listen, I just had, you see that picture up there? I got another grant not only since the last time have I been here that a lot of stuff's happened for you, some stuff's happened for me. I have my ninth grandchild, Elvia Rosetta Cantadore. Look at that kid. Is that the most, come on, be real. That kid is gorgeous, right? They sent that picture out, everybody's like, hold up her head. No, she's just nosy. I call her Nosy Rosie. She just wants to see everything. And she's looking around and just to see God's faithfulness in these little kids is just so amazing. Also, the same week she was born, my oldest grandson, Trey, gets engaged. Tell me you don't feel like an old geezer when that happens, right? So you got somebody 22, you got a little rugrat days old, and me. And then I had this experience, which was wonderful. I go to the Y and I swim. This is more than you want to know. Okay, this is off script. My wife hates that. She says, stay on script. Okay, I'm off script just for a second, honey, please. Thank you. So anyway, I go to the Y. I walk by this same lady 100 times, Curtis. Check in, sir. Check in, sir. This day, the bells go off, and all of a sudden she says, Mr. Cantadore, welcome to Silver Sneakers. I turned 65. I'm part of the Silver Sneakers Club. On top of her lungs, in front of all the people, she's explaining all the perks of silver sneakers. I'm saying, can I get to the pool? I mean, everybody's going to know I'm Silver Sneakers. You got kids swimming in that pool with postage stamps, and you got me with the Bermudas. They know who's the Silver Sneaker, okay? Trust me. And then she concluded by saying, good news is your Y membership is free. I said, you should have led with that, honey. I mean, that would have made this other thing go down a whole lot easier. Different seasons of life. Newborn. Old grandfather. The faithfulness of God. He's so faithful. And I want you to know that even in the midst of the waiting room, how many love a waiting room? None of us like the waiting room. But there's growth in the waiting room. Right? In a waiting room, you pray like you never prayed before. Come on now. Right? In the waiting room, you're learning to lean on something that's bigger than you. And you're trusting that moment, the moment about to come, to be in the hands of a God that you've leaned your weight on. I did a waiting room, and the doctor says, hey, you're looking good. Lose 45 pounds. Goodbye. Or you come on the other side of it, and you get a bill of health. We walk away, and we do this. Well, thanks for skirting that one, God. No, maybe just that was the hand of God in that moment to show you how you needed to position yourself on the mountaintop and in the valley. Trust is a must. I'm telling you. Trust is the firm belief in the reliability, the truth, and the ability and the strength of something. And I'm here to tell you, for you to trust one another, for you to trust an overseer board, for you to trust transition, you've got to trust the God of those things. Listen, if we could see as God sees, we'd be more inclined to do as God says and rest in the waiting room. The problem is we think we see everything. Listen, you remember the movie? You can't handle the truth. We can't handle all that God has for us yet, but he'll unpack it one step at a time. Listen, he knows your IQ, your spiritual IQ. He knows my spiritual IQ. He put me together. He knows my bumps and warts. He knows what I can handle and what I can't handle. And in the middle of it all, he says, Frankie, trust me. I've been faithful, I am faithful, and I will continue to be faithful. You see, faith is trust. It's trust that God sees what we can't, and that he knows what we don't know. That's faith. That's trust. You see, when we say, I can't figure it out, God says, I'll direct your steps. Now listen, this isn't only about a church. This is about where you're sitting. I've got some anxious moments. I've got some junk that I'm asking God to do miracles in. I'm believing God for things that in the natural can't happen. They haven't been delivered yet, but he's faithful. So like growing up, the Italians would say, piano, piano. That means easy, easy. Don't get all crazy. Don't get all nuts. Don't get all distracted. Just rest in his presence and trust him for his provisions. Can I say this? Be very careful who you put in your inner circle. Not everybody that wants in should you or I let in. Be very careful the voices you listen to. Someone defined wisdom as the skillful management of life, knowing what to say and when to say it. You see, some well-intended people who are really good friends can't handle some of the stuff that happens in that inner circle with God and one or two. Be very careful to manage life that way. Some of the greatest junk that I had to deal with was because I had the wrong people in the inner circle. Now I don't trust nobody. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm going to tell you one I trust. Mike Field. And I'm here to tell you, this wasn't an exit strategy. This is what is God saying, Father, what do I need to do, even when I don't understand all the details. I don't get all the details. I'm not comfortable with all the details. But I've trusted you from A to Z. And I'm going to trust you in this season. We're going to trust you when you're a little rugrat like that. I'm going to get her first baby Jordans. We're going to trust you when you slap on, Curtis. You've had these. The Silver Sneaker Club. You have to love me, brother. Oh, look, he's got them up too, okay? Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with what? All your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. The trust factor isn't just, hear me loud and clear. I want to bring peace and comfort and tranquility and a perspective to you as a church in transition. But I'm here to tell you, we got to embrace this trust factor for our individual lives. You have to. What are you trusting God for? Think right now, what's your biggest issue? What's your biggest anxiety? What's your biggest concern? Now, okay, so you're holding on to that. Now look back. What was a biggie that God came through for? All right? We're just en route again. And listen, he may not answer it the way you want. Are you okay with that? That's a trust factor. That's me saying, God, I can't be you. Forgive me for trying. But would you be you? And would you hear the cry of this grandfather? Would you hear the cry of this father? Would you hear the cry of this husband? for his family? Would you hear the cry of this head of school for the school? Would you hear my cry? And here's what I'm saying, God, show up. I think you've downloaded to me some details, but if I'm out of whack, straighten it up and you do it your way. And we got to be big enough to accept that. So you say, well, I thought he was going to do it this way. I must have missed God. No. You just got a little squirrely for a while. All right? Because what's the verse say? In all your ways acknowledge him. He'll make your path straight. It says don't lean on your own understanding. Doesn't mean you're nuts. If it is, I'm crazy. Put me out to pasture. Okay? It just means with our limited understanding, we leaned on what we knew. But with his limitless understanding and perspective, he says, I got this. Right? It's almost like the kid coming up to you, your 13-year-old kid, hey, can I take the keys to the car and go for a ride? Oh, kid, here. I love you so much. Here's the keys. Are you kidding me? But I may come back and give him a ride. I may come back and give him some lessons. Until the time is such that I relinquish my trust, I'm trusting God and I'm trusting wisdom for the situation. It's the skillful management of life. It's just skillfully manage the moments that we're in. I love what it says here in the Amplified. Same passage of Scripture. Lean on, trust in, and be confident in the Lord with all your heart and mind. Do not rely on your own insight or your own understanding in all your ways. You know what all means in the Greek? I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was looking for. All right, okay, I don't know Greek or Hebrew. I was Berean. Okay, just kidding. All right, all means all. The Scripture's true. With all of our ways, know, recognize, and acknowledge him, and he'll direct and make straight and plain your paths. We complicate it. And we want to be in the midst of it. We do. We just complicate it. We don't mean to. Our heart is right, but sometimes we just get in the way, don't we? I mean, if on my wall in the house is a plaque that we've had up for years and years and years. How long has it been up there, Kristen? Over 10 years. A long, long time. And it simply says this: pray hard, work hard, and trust God. Pray hard, work hard, and trust God. It is absolutely amazing what God could do with surrendered people who don't give a rip who gets the credit but God, and just step out in our faithfulness. All right, I'm going to talk about Mike. He didn't ask me to. I got the mic about Mike. So here's the deal. You trust your pastor, don't you? He's a good one. He's a step above. He's walked with many of you through some stuff. He's the most private guy. He's confidential. He's real. He's the real deal. I'm not saying this guy's perfect. None of us are. Jesus is. But this guy's on a different level. You've trusted him for how many years now? 16 years? 15 years? Are you willing to trust him now when he has to say goodbye to a new assignment? Because his God and our God is that faithful. You don't think that he's on his knees praying, God, you make the perfect provision? You don't think there's some anxious moments? But when you hear from God and you take steps of faith, you're not only trusting your journey, you're trusting God to take care of the journey behind you. We left Torrington. We were going to turn it upside down. You know, the school's bigger than it ever was when we were there. Maybe we had to get out of the way. I don't like to think that. Right? Who likes to think it? And I'm not saying anybody's got to get out of the way, but it was obviously a time for transition. Who would ever dream that I would have this relationship and then be able to continue to minister in this community? That it's a God thing. I'm not bright enough to make all this happen. It's God. I'm not even spiritual enough. I just had good people around me to tell me, will you just go easy? Will you just trust God? God gave me a great inner voice of people that poured into my life. Some heathens, some saints. There's something, right? How many have had parents that maybe didn't walk with Jesus, but they had some good principles that they left you? How many have relationships with people that aren't quite what you would want them to be on your terms, but you're still in relationship? Trusting the faithfulness of God. Pray hard, work hard, trust God. I was thinking about it the other day. So just think about this with me. Trust and faith are two big-time ingredients that work. I don't know about you, but my favorite meal in the whole world is pasta vazul. All right, now listen. Someone comes to your table and says, "Sir, our soup for today is pasta fagioli." Run. If a guy with an Italian accent shows up and says, "We got some fresh pasta vazul," put away the prime rib, ditch the steak, bring out the beans and pasta. Let's go. There are all kinds of ingredients for pasta vazul. Some of you are looking at me like, what the heck's pasta vazul? It's bean soup. So if you serve it, one of you are going to be on the couch for tonight. Okay, so I'm just telling you it's worth it. Chew on that a little bit. Anyway, it's a poor man's meal. Back in the day when they didn't have the money for any meat or chicken or anything, they would make pasta vazul. And it's got buku ingredients, phenomenal ingredients. I was reading the other day. Dean Martin's favorite meal was pasta vazul. I'm pretty sure there was bourbon in his, but not in ours. Side note there, look up Dean Martin, you young bucks. You don't know who Dean Martin is. Anyway, how they spelt it was pasta vazul. F-A-Z-O-O-L. My wife got the recipe from my off-the-boat grandmother. It's the best. She passed on that recipe to my daughter. The best. The best. But there are two ingredients you can't shake. You've got to have cannellini beans. You've got to have that. You can't make pasta vazul without this. We're cheap. We went to Harris Teeter. And you got to have pasta. You got to have pasta. We didn't go cheap here. Because you don't ever go cheap on the pasta. Right, Crick? Yeah. She won't tell me if she goes cheap. She doesn't go cheap. Those two ingredients you can't shake. If you look up a recipe for pasta vazul, you're going to have multiple recipes depending on what part of Italy you were born. We were in the Northwest. We're way up by the Alps. We make it a whole different way than the Sicilians. I can't help it that the Sicilians got it wrong. But the Piemontese from the Piedmont got it right. If you're Sicilian, we can fight after. The bottom line is all kinds of other ingredients. but you can't miss the staple items. There are all kinds of ingredients to our faith journeys, people. You've got to hold on to faith and trust. Those two you can't shake. You can't leave out. You can't leave those two components out. You can mess around with the other ingredients, but you can't lose the cannellini beans, white kidney beans, and the pasta. I love what Jerry Bridges said here. He's an author, a leader, and a speaker. He's gone on to be with the Lord. He was part of the Navigators, and Navigators, spent over the last 100 years or so. I mean, it was 1933 they started. They went into 100 different countries for discipleship. I mean, basically, it was life-to-life discipleship, poured himself into it, wrote a book. You want to read a good book from back in the day, 1991, Nav Press, Trusting God by Jerry Bridges. This is what he said. God's plan and his ways of working out his plan are frequently beyond our ability to fathom and understand. We must learn to trust when we don't understand. We raise up a child in a way he should go. When he's old, he won't. Why are so many on tangents? I don't understand. But his promise says, and I'm resting on his promise, and I'm trusting him in the waiting room. The unknown sometimes just scares the tail off us. We like to be comfortable. Someone said it this way: in your life, in this church's life, in my life, change and transition. Listen, change and transition are market opportunities for the wise. So I want to be that wise guy. I don't want to be a mouthy wise guy. I want to be the wise guy that sits, listens to wise counsel, trusts the leaders that God has given me, and even when I don't understand decisions, say, God, you're in control. This is a minor detour. You get me back on the main drag. You get this situation back on the main drag. I trust you. You notice I'm almost falling off this stage. I'm getting too close. But the good news is, if I can't survive that, I got to move on to the next level after silver sneakers. At our church, it's about this high. If I go off, I'm just making believe I was slain in the spirit. I mean, I ain't getting up. We're all part of something bigger. You know, it was just last year that my grandson Trey was playing basketball at Lipscomb University, Division I basketball school over there in Nashville. If you know anything about college basketball, you've heard the term the portal. It's where these kids go in, they opt to go someplace else. And for a multitude of reasons, they're trying to find a fit, trying to find a place that aligns more with their strengths and abilities, and I want to do it's an opportunity. I'm not a fan of the portal. I'm a fan of my grandson. I think the portal changes the dynamics of the game. If you want a seminar on that, call me. I'll give you this is an old coach. But the portal, we have to embrace it. We don't understand all the dynamics of it. We don't get it. We might not even like it. But it's an opportunity, it's a risk, and many are taking it. After 2 good years there, he opted to go into the portal. Between the time he made the decision to leave a place that was taking care of his education and where he had a spot on the team, he chose to take a step of faith and go into the portal. All kinds of things. Opportunities came up, phone calls and stuff, but nothing was solidified. There was probably 3 or 4 weeks where everything went silent. I want you to think about that for a 20-year-old kid. This is paying for my education. I've had a good place. I believe God's got a better place. I'm going to step out in faith, and everything goes silent. Life stinks in the waiting room, but it's where we get the most growth. Phone calls with his parents, phone calls with me, embracing people he trusted. Just sat and waited and worried. Are you worried? And wondered. Do you wonder? Silence. But holding on to something. And I might be putting words in his mouth, but he had a peace to take that step of faith in that moment, and he did it. And God didn't just show up with bells and whistles and balloons and give him his answer. He probably said to the kid, all right, it's going to be a life lesson. Sit for a little while, kid. That's how much I love you. Well, got a call one day, me and my daughter, Tori. We're going to go up and take a visit from an interested coach at High Point University. We went up there. Look at his first slide. I love the quote. It's not, listen, I look back at my whole deal, and it blows me away. I didn't even know what that said. I promise you, my daughter, she's gorgeous, right? But she don't even know there's writing on the wall behind her right now. I mean, we're just standing there in front of a John Maxwell thing. We're just taking this journey together. We're walking through this gorgeous campus. I'm more worried about the guys that are looking at my daughter than I am my kid. And I don't know if you can read that, but this is what it says. You can't grow unless you're willing to change. And you'll not change unless you change something you do every day. Apply that to your discipline of reading the scriptures. Apply that to your discipline of prayer. Apply that to the lessons of life that we experience when we're in the waiting room. We're trusting God and know He's coming through. We didn't know if an offer was going to come. We didn't. Same trip up the road. Side note, travel in Nashville to see your kid play ball. Travel to High Point. I almost pulled a gun on the coach just to say, would you take this kid? It's going to make my life so much easier. I didn't have to. God was orchestrating every step. I think we stayed overnight. The next day, that's a whole nother story I won't get. But anyway, we stayed overnight. Next day, he signed with High Point University. Thank you, Jesus. Right? He signed with High Point University. We went back to the hotel. My daughter took a picture of this. That's the release and the thanks for God taking care of him. That kid, you could cut his arm off, he won't cry. But in that moment, he had to release some things. Because of the faithfulness of his God in the midst of his wonder. He had a phenomenal junior year. They won the Big South regular season. Bought season tickets. Remortgaged the house to get them. Went to so many games to see this kid play. God's faithfulness in the midst of the wonder. How's the waiting room going for you? Have you got to a place where every part of your heart you're giving to God even when you don't understand? As a church, I pray you do. Not only have I the privilege of being an overseer Mike and I are great friends. I trust God for hope because I trust Mike. And I trust what God is doing in his life. And I trust hope because you got great people here. What's the next step look like? You're in the portal. But he'll come through. There'll be some tears. There'll be some celebration. But you're going to be so thankful for what he does because of his faithfulness. In your personal lives, how's that working for you? You got some things that are keeping you up at night? Sickness, heartache, wonder, pain. You're in the portal. You're in the waiting room. Take a glance in the rearview mirror. He came through before. He'll come through again. And he'll never allow us to go through anything we can't handle with him. But don't skirt him. Don't get mad at him. Don't sidestep him. Embrace him. As the musicians come, I can't help but this analogy. I might even have shared it here with you in the past. But this final verse says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man." Everybody say, "I'm blessed." Who trusts in him. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. How do we trust in him? Let me tell you a closing story about John Patton. 1858, John Patton was part of the Reformed Presbyterian Church. He and his wife, Mary Ann, felt a call to the Pacific Islands to go to the New Hebrides. To minister to the cannibals. You think you got it tough? Remember the old cartoons? Wile E. T. Coyote? Looking at the Roadrunner? See a fully cooked meal? Imagine ministering to the cannibals. I don't understand why God called him. I'm thankful in this moment he didn't call me. But he was faithful to call it. 1858. They went over. There wasn't a language. They just simply ministered. They were faithful in the little things. They knew why they were called there, but there was a waiting room. There was a portal that they had to swim through, that they had to endure for a moment, for a season. As they translated the native tongue, they began to translate the New Testament. All they did is simply serve. The final outcome, years later, his kid went back. The whole village accepted Jesus Christ. All these cannibals became vegetarians. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But the whole village got saved. Two orphanages. Churches. Discipleship classes. But in the moment of translation, they didn't know what was going on. They couldn't come up with a word for trust. They couldn't really embrace the word faith. But for the sake of the translation of that New Testament, to those cannibals in those Pacific islands, they decided to come together with one phrase. And this is how it happened. As he was walking, one of his friends that he began to teach the English language was sitting on a log. And John Patton looked over and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing right now?" And that native said, "I'm leaning all my weight upon this log." And to this day, in that native tongue, in that translation, every time trust or faith comes up, It's simply translated this word: leaning all my weight upon. How you doing with that today? In your personal journey, are you leaning all your weight upon God? Is there a portion of your heart? Do you have competing voices that you got to quiet? Do you got to ditch the computer and open an old-fashioned Bible and read? Do you just need to find a quiet time in the middle of your busyness? In your frustration of something that hasn't happened, have you tabled it? Take it off the table. Go back to your knees and let God know how desperate you are for that need to come through. In the valley of indecision, do you just push it aside and compartmentalize it? I'm saying open the door again. Have it come back so God can hear your cry and you can trust Him because He's faithful and He's true. And all we need to do, listen, all we need to do is lean all our weight upon Him. So in your personal life and in the church's life, I'm here to tell you, you serve a big-time God that is faithful. I'm sorry for the heartache and the pain you may have gone through or go through. If it's my heart's desire, I don't want you to experience any of that junk. As parents or grandparents, when you see your kid or grandkid hurting, how many have said this? Send that my way. Don't do this to this kid. Jesus said that for us and everybody. Send it my way. And lean all your weight upon me. He's going to come through. He's going to come through for you personally. He's going to come through for you as a church. He's going to come through. I'm preaching to myself. There's a handful of things here that I'm putting back on the table because I just pushed aside because I got too weary. I'm putting them back on the table. Say, God, you're faithful. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to lean all my weight upon you, and I'm going to trust you.